but we begin with Chuck Schumer praising Donald Trump. Take a look.
I was born in Brooklyn, the same place where Donald Trump's family comes from. His father and my grandfather were builders together in Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah. Even when he was much younger, you knew that he was going to go places, so it's no...
Senator Schumer and Mr. Trump are good friends. They both have a passion for life, and you get that immediately talking to him.
Obviously, a few years ago, before Trump was president, but he was kind of right. Now Schumer has nothing nice to say. He's already at his lowest popularity rate in New York State, according to the just-released Siena poll out today. AOC, by the way, on the rise big time. So the question tonight is, are Chuck's days numbered? But if there is one constant in the Democratic Party, it's that they don't really, truly believe in anything. Everything they say, everything they do is about their own political power. Let me give you an example. In 2017, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen bashed Trump on Twitter. Why? Saying, quote, we should be focused on deporting MS-13, not scholarship winners. That's the same guy that last week, went to visit the deported suspected MS-13 gang member to bring him back to this country. Chris Van Hollen threw a fit, even got on that plane to El Salvador, demanding his immediate return. That would be political grandstanding at its worst. And this is the same Chris Van Hollen, couldn't even pick up a telephone and speak with the families of young women who were raped and murdered in his state by unvetted illegal immigrants. And just yesterday, another illegal immigrant was charged with the murder of a 23-year-old woman whose body was found in a Maryland forest. Will he pick up the phone now? But we have yet to see any kind of hysteria from Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. I'm sure he's just very worn out. He's probably very tired from his big trip to El Salvador. But the hypocrisy doesn't end there. Let's go to Earth Day. Of course, Al Gore forcing his way back into the spotlight. This time he is honoring our planet by comparing Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. Take a look.
I understand very well why it is wrong to compare Adolf Hitler's Third Reich to any other movement. It was uniquely evil, full stop. I get it. But there are important lessons from the history of that emergent evil. But it was Habermas's mentor, Theodor Adorno, who wrote that the first step in that nation's descent into hell was, and I quote, the conversion of all questions of truth into questions of power. He described how the Nazis, and I quote again, attacked the very heart of the distinction between true and false, end quote. The Trump administration is insisting on trying to create their own preferred version of reality.
Oh, of course. Now, I shouldn't compare people to Hitler, but I'll do it anyway. Now, just like most of his other colleagues in the Democratic Party, Al Gore is a complete fraud and hypocrite. He's like the original climate hysteria hypocrite of all time. Everything he says is a ploy to get money and power. So tonight, time for a quick Hannity history lesson. I promise you're not going to hear it anywhere else in the media. Let's go back to 2007. That same guy, Al Gore, warned of a planetary emergency. He said the planet has a fever and that humanity could soon be in peril. That, of course, was false. In 2009, Gore said that 75% of the entire polar ice cap will melt in the next 5 to 7 years. That was also totally false. By 2015, the ice caps even expanded in many areas. He also warned about the extinction of the coral reefs. Oops. But in 2019, the reefs grew by 2%. This came after decades of dire, varying claims about climate change, climate cooling, climate warming. Then, if it snows, you have an excuse. If it doesn't snow, if there's an earthquake, if there's not an earthquake, if there's a hurricane, if there's not a hurricane, always have an excuse for something. This came after years of wild claims about climate change. Let's take you back to 1975. Look at that. That's Newsweek. They predicted a cooling world with an ice age by the mid-1980s. Obviously, they were wrong. In 1995, the New York Times reported that beaches on the east coast of the U.S. would be wiped out by 2021. 4 years ago, in 2006, Time magazine claimed that the Earth was at a tipping point and that we all should be very, very worried. But here's the thing. Democrats, they never actually believe that. Al Gore, of all people, look at this. This was a Hannity exclusive video, filmed jetting all over the country in a private jet. That jet seats about 14, 16 people. There's only 2 people on it and the pilots. So the same thing with Biden's climate czar, John Kerry. I need important work and I need to get there quickly. That's why I get to take a private jet and I want you to get rid of your SUV. Look at your screen. Just this week, I love this. AOC, Bernie Sanders. Look at them right there. That's a nice plane they're getting out of there. Look at that. They were filmed stepping off their private jet. I'm not against private jets, but don't lecture everybody about their SUVs or their caravans, for crying out loud. And remember, in 2019, it was AOC claiming that the world was going to end in 12 years. Why? Because of rising CO2 levels. But now she's riding around, leaving a huge carbon footprint with a private jet for her and her mentor, Bernie Sanders. And meanwhile, environmental activists in New York, they painted Wall Street's iconic bull to show their dedication to the climate cult and socialism. But then frantically, they cleaned up their mess when the cops arrived on the scene. They don't actually care enough about their cause to go to jail. Now, of course, if you're in Minnesota and you damage private property, no consequences in Tim Walz's state, so long as your cause aligns with the radical left Democratic extremists. For example, a far-left Minnesota state employee was just gifted a get-out-of-jail-free card by a woke district attorney after allegedly causing more than $20,000 in damage to several Tesla vehicles. Sounds like domestic terrorism to me, but what would I know? Make no mistake, at the end of the day, this has nothing to do with the Earth cooling, global warming, which has evolved into the generic climate change. So if it gets warm, they have a name for it. If it gets cold, they have a name for it. If it snows, they've got a name for it. If it doesn't snow, they have a name for it. Look at this list. It's the Green New Deal. Look, everything on this list has nothing to do really with climate. Climate warming, climate cooling, climate changing is the left's mechanism for Marxism, statism, as represented by that list. To each, according to their need, from each, according to their ability. The only thing Democrats really care about actually is political power and you being dependent on them. And this is the result. Look at this heartbreaking video. This is a little girl in San Francisco attempting to ride her scooter down a sidewalk that's lined with strung-out drug addicts. Great job, Gavin. Now Democrats want to control every aspect of your life on top of what they already control. You know, they've done so well giving you nearly $40 trillion in debt, the worst schools in spite of spending more money in the entire industrialized world. They brought Social Security and Medicaid to the brink of bankruptcy. And by the way, how's law and order and safety and security working out in your town, in your city, since the defund, dismantled, no bail laws were implemented by the left? Now even leftist Governor Newsom, he's now trying, good luck, Gavin, to distance himself from the very decisions that created this horrible scene. But just this week, his parole board, they ordered the release of a man who was convicted of beating a toddler to death, a 2-year-old toddler to death, after spending just 15 years in prison. And by the way, Newsom should know that his party's base, they don't take too kindly to self-reflection. Just look at what happened to Rambo Deadfish Emanuel when he dared to lightly criticize the Democratic Party's radical agenda. Take a look.
We were really south on kitchen table issues. We weren't really good about the family room issues.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you 100%.
Okay, the only room we were did really well was the bathroom, and that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such that is total. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative, and I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this.
Oh, Rahm is not leftist enough. He's pretty left. Democrats are in big trouble. Why? Because their radical ideology, it has failed miserably. Even some in Hollywood can see the handwritings on the wall. Take a look.
This is where I would push back. When I see this kind of insight and passion being directed at the current administration and the lack of this kind of insight and passion being directed at the previous administration, where, again, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about left-leaning news media organizations were kind of like, la, 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 everything's fine. Look, the environment's, look, the economy's great, la, 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 immigration's not that much of a problem. And really being Cleopatra, queen of denial. Thank you. Boom.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.